Okay, so maybe you saw the whole video on how to do the first assignment using Photoshop, and you stopped on your tracks and you said, well, yes, but I don't have Photoshop. There are multiple labs at Dallas College that have Photoshop. I'm working on getting a list of where you can go to use the software and follow the lessons along. If that can't happen for whatever circumstance, something that you can do, and I'm sure that YouTube has more resources out there as well, you could use a program called Photopea. In the lesson, just because that's where the directions are and they live, and we're going to be doing the same thing, I want to see how fast I can get through this. My expertise in Photoshop is, or rather in Photopea, it's only what I remember from older versions of Photoshop. When you open up Photopea, it very much reminds me of Photoshop CS6, which it's been a while since that's been out. I used to have it for my Mac, but I don't think that it runs anymore, even though I paid for it. So here's Photopea. I'll slide down a little bit. There may be some ads. There may be some nagging telling you to subscribe. It doesn't cost anything except that, oh yes, there's ads, and I do have an extension to block it. Actually, I'm using Edge and it blocks it on their own. Usually I just leave them on because I don't know. I don't want to block ads if it helps them keep up this site. I don't know how much longer it'll be around, but in the meantime, especially if, like I said, if you're familiar with the older Photoshop, it looks a lot like it. It's got the same layout. It's got the same menus. If you saw the other video, you'll remember that I used the select menu, that I use layers, which will be displayed here. There's the move tool, there's the marquee tool, there is the text tool. One thing about the text is that you're limited to whatever fonts they have. They're all going to be open source fonts. But pretty much everything else, they're the basic tools that you can find in Photoshop and older versions of Photoshop. Let's try this real quick. I'm going to go File, New, and I'm going to create a new project. Over here you're going to see that it's got lots of templates because you can create projects for social media. I'm going to create the new project and I'll call this one week 01 and I'll just call it Photopea. If you're working on the first one, or the first of two images, one is going to be the principles and the other one is going to be the elements. You can start to name them that way. Actually, why don't I do that? I'm going to call this one week 01 and I'll do elements. The width, just like in the other video, I'll change pixels to inches and I will put in 10 by 10 and I'll change the dots per inch, the resolution, to 300 dpi. The background will be white. I'm not going to mess with any of the social stuff or the phones I'll create. So now that it's created, I think I can get a ruler. If I go to View and find rulers, the layouts are very much, like I said, like Photoshop. I don't know if it'll snap to the middle, but I can click and drag and hope. And actually, it kind of does snap a little bit here. I think that's the middle. And I'll do the same from the left, right there. So now I have the middle. I'm in the background, so I'll create a new layer. Similar new layer button down here. I will create a new marquee square. If I press the Shift key, the same thing happens. I don't remember the size that I used before, but I think that around right here, 625 or so, that should be okay. And then I have my foreground and background color already selected. It's currently red. I'll click on it and I don't know, I'll pick blue again just because. And do the same thing. Edit, fill, the foreground color, 100% opacity, click OK. I can deselect, select, deselect, Control D is the same thing. And use the move tool and move this to where I kind of know it's going to fit okay. Right about there, I'd say. Now, I don't know if the clone tool works the same way. If I press and hold Control, actually it does. So now I have a copy of that. I'll do it one more time and one last time. Now I have 4 squares going along the way there. I'll click on the top layer, press and hold Shift, and click on the last layer. They're all selected. The color changed like it does in Photoshop. And I'm kind of guessing that up here I can select equal gaps, and that's the same thing as balancing. And since they're all selected, I can move these to the center. Great, so now that they're still selected, I can click and hold the Alt key on my PC. Don't ask me what the shortcuts are for Adobe, or rather for Macintosh. I don't know if it's going to be the Option key or what. I'll drag this, let go of the mouse button, and now I have 8 squares, like the other one did. So cool. Now I'm going to go to the top of the layers so that when I click on my text tool, I can start to type. Click around here somewhere. It's got to load the font. And I'll type the first word, color. And it's a very tiny font. You can't see it. It's not that it's tiny, it's that the resolution is so high, and I'm working on a 72 dpi environment. I'm in a web page. So let's see how large it needs to go to be visible. I'd say that's about good enough. And why don't I pick the other word, the longest word, movement. I'll center the text. The icon looks the same. I'll spell that correctly, movement. Like I said, I don't know what fonts are out there. It's Deja Vu, which actually I'm kind of familiar with. I use this in my Linux classes. I'll see if I can find one that I like that's thin, darker grotesque, DPS. Actually, this DM Sans looks to be okay. It's a little bit better. I can make it a little bit smaller. How about I bring it down to about that size, 131 or so. I could also type in, I could put in 125 px, and that should work. I'll move movement, no pun, joke intended. Okay, I'll stop. And do the same thing as I did in the other one. I'll click and hold Control to make copies. At least 1, at least 2. I'll select all the text and pressing Alt, actually, I'll bring them all down here. So now I have all my verbiage here. Using the text tool, I'm going to add color. That's not the same as Photoshop. I need to find this more proper like. I don't know where I'm clicking. Let's see, if I right click, will it tell me? Okay, yes, movement, copy to. And so if I select that, it'll take me there. I can double click on the T like I can in Photoshop, and then I can add my text line. Click on move again, right click on that word. It takes me to the proper layer, double click, mass, and movement, right click, movement. I'll let you do the rest of the text on your own. You can change it. I know you can do it. I'm going to right click on this layer 1, and that's where my first square is. Most definitely. I already have the file that I saved before for color. Now bringing it in to a website application, it's a little bit different. Let's see if I remember. File. Can I open from my computer? Open. It actually points to my documents, and then there is my desktop. And I know that on my desktop I created a folder called Week 01. It's a little bit slow. Week 01, and there's colors. I'll click open. And just like Photoshop, it opens it up the whole thing in a separate tab up here. So Week 01, the file that I just created, transform colors, that's actually a command. Where am I clicking? Colors.psd. I can do the same thing as I did in Photoshop. I can make a selection of the image that's square, and I can copy, edit, copy, come back here. I know that I'm in the right layer, I think. Well, I'm at the very top, so if I go to edit and paste, it will create C text and images copied. Oh, okay, allow to do that. There is the square. Is it the right size? Well, it's probably pretty close. Actually, I got lucky. Let me zoom in a little bit with this, the zoom in tool. I can I press Control T? Probably not. Like I said, I'm sort of learning as I go along. I've used it before, but not that much. How about edit? Oh, what if I press Control T? Oh, don't press Control T. It opens up a new tab. I am in a in a website, in a browser application. So what I'm really looking for, I'm looking for a command here, but I think I need to make a selection first. Layer 2, transform controls. That's what I was looking for. That makes sense. Control T is similar. And then I can make this the right size by pressing Shift also so that it remains square. And double click to accept. Great. Let's do this again on the next square. Control minus helps me zoom out. I'm going to bring in file, open the other file, lines. It opens, loads it. I'm going to select all of this, select all, copy, and I'm already at the top layer. Let's paste, and I'll use the move tool to paste this where it needs to go. It's already got, I guess since I was using transform controls before, it's already set. I will press and hold the shift key so that the square shape remains. When I make it larger and scale it, double click to accept. I'm going to zoom out, control minus. I'm sure that control 0 will show me the whole thing. So now I've got started and I've gotten as far along as I did in Photoshop. Hopefully you have a little bit of Photoshop experience since you're taking this class. If you don't have access to Photoshop, there are other solutions. I would not depend completely on Photopea. I would recommend that if you can make it to the lab that you do so. If you can maybe call your library. I know that my local municipal library has Photoshop and actually the whole Adobe suite available for people to use. Be careful, however, because some office hours, I'm sure, are limited, and some space may be limited because of COVID concerns. At any rate, good luck using Photopea. I hope that this was some help. There are other programs out there, however, they're big, they're a little bit more difficult to use. Photopea is very similar to Photoshop. There are, like I said, some other web applications that if you have a little bit of Photoshop knowledge, it probably goes a long way. Like I said, most of this I just guessed along or kind of remember how I did this back, I think it was spring break of 2020 when I last used this and I was teaching Photoshop to a high school class. If you have any questions, concerns, please email me. The email address is in eCampus or contact me in the Discord server. Oh, before I go, and I know that I was just going to shut the door, how do you save this? I'm guessing go to File, and I still want a PSD. Save as PSD. And it actually, since it's already got a name, it pushed a file called week01 elements, and I'm guessing it went to my downloads folder. And sure enough, there it is, week01 elements, PSD. And guess what happens if I double click on it? well, I'm not going to wait on my computer for that long, but it opens Photoshop because it's a Photoshop document. Everything about it looks like, smells like Photoshop. All of my layers are here. The text is going to be difficult and different because Photopea depends on an internet connection to load it continuously. So just like with the Adobe Photoshop video, what you can do to turn this in once you have your PSD, go through the same process. Go to the bottom and, well, not the bottom anymore. You click first on the assignment name, then go to the bottom and find your local files to submit. This is the PSD that I created with Photopea. You would click on open and then hit submit. Hopefully though you have multiple files to turn in because this is a two-part assignment. There is the elements of design and the principles of design that you have to create and turn in. And hopefully either you have Photoshop and you did it that way, or you used Photopea or a similar open source tool to complete the whole work. See you in the next video.